guys, today we're going to be chatting all about Dior. Yes, it is July, but the fall collection launches next month, so I thought we would sit down very casually, just kind of try out some of the new products. I've been playing around with them a little bit. They've also released a new concealer and a new powder, and I also have their primer and liquid foundation, which I have never tried before, so let's get started. Thought I'd bring you in a little bit closer. I'm going to be starting with the Diorskin Forever and Ever Wear. This is the Extreme Perfection and Hold makeup base with sunscreen. It's got an SPF 20 in there, which I think is awesome. I mean, it's always good to wear like a separate SPF, but if you don't have the time or if you just need a little extra protection, I think that's super helpful. It's got like a really kind of somewhere in between a silicone and a cream feeling. It has a really nice, smooth texture, absorbed into my skin nicely. I have oily skin, so obviously I don't want anything that's going to sit on my skin, be too heavy. Feels like slightly moisturizing, but also kind of tacky, and doesn't have that like slippery feeling that you get sometimes with primers. Moving on to foundation, I'm going to be using this guy. It is the Forever foundation. This is fairly new, but not like brand new. I'm using the shade 41, which I think might be a little bit light for me. I'm an NC 42 at MAC, and in the Air Flash at Dior, I wear 401 or 500, kind of somewhere in between. But let's see. Oh no, this is actually a pretty good match, and I'm super broken out, so we'll put this to the test. I have been using kind of like this skinny stippling brush lately for my foundations, and I really like it. I haven't been liking much of a heavy coverage, even though I've been breaking out. I've just kind of been like embracing it. It doesn't have a super like perfumed or floral scent. I know a lot of luxury makeup can go pretty heavy on the floral, but this is pretty nice. It's kind of like a fresh floral and nothing super perfumey. So this is one fairly light layer on my face there, and again, remember, I'm not using a dense brush, so that's gonna affect the coverage versus this side, and I think it's a really good color match. I'm actually gonna just build it up slightly and finish my face. So here it is. I think it's really beautiful. It's got kind of like a semi-matte finish. There's a little bit of dewiness to my skin, but it feels incredibly lightweight. Looks really lightweight on the skin. If you'd like to see an oily skin diaries on this, let me know down below, but you'll see in my swatches if you're curious about color match. I have the Forever foundation in the middle with the two Dior Air Flashes on the side, so that should kind of give you an idea, because I was trying to find what my shade was for this, and I guessed, and I got really, really lucky, but the shades are kind of limited when you're looking for like reviews online. So I thought I'd move you up to my eyes because I'm going to be using some deeper shades. These are the two palettes from the Fall 2017 collection. It's all about metallics, and I do plan on having blog posts up on everything in the collection so you can see further swatches, but I thought it'd be more fun to just kind of play around with it a little bit today. I actually did drop this, and it smashed in like the most beautiful way possible. Just kind of like the middle of the shadow popped out. I saw that there was powder all over the floor, and then I was looking at the palette and I was like, where is it broken? I could barely tell. So it was really bizarre. I've never had anything break like this, but let's just go ahead and put this on the eyeballs. So I'm starting with the brown in this palette, Hypnotize, and one thing I noticed right off the bat with these shadows was that they're a little bit softer. I find sometimes Dior shadows are a little bit more on the stiff side, so you might need to use a more dense brush. It's just like kind of a different formula than what I'm normally used to, but especially in the mattes, they definitely have a little bit more powder kick up, which I prefer, and I never really get that from Dior shadows, or not as often anyways. So this brown actually looks quite somewhere in between like neutral and warm in the palette, but it pulls quite cool on me just because my skin tone is so warm. So I'm using the middle shade from that same palette. It's got like a gorgeous satiny finish, and again, a really soft, beautiful formula. The only shades in here that I don't love in both of the palettes are kind of the glitters, and those would be more almost like kind of toppers. But I wish they had actual like more impact. I'm taking the black from this palette on a tiny little brush. I'm just gonna bring it in my outer corner and add a little definition. I'll show you this glitter in action. As you can see, it actually swatches quite nicely. It's got a really interesting texture. It almost feels wet in a weird way. But as you can see, it adds like a really beautiful shine, but I just thought it was going to be more of like a true gold shadow, but I do like the effect. It's interesting, it's different. Just kind of depends like what, like if you're going to invest in a palette like this, just Just know that, just in case you were expecting like a super high impact gold, it's really kind of a topper, but it does have a beautiful look when packed on the other shadows. Also, as a part of this collection, they have this brow pencil, and when I first saw it, I was like, this looks incredibly small, but when I looked it up, when I looked at the amount, it has just the same amount as the Anastasia Brow Wiz, as any of the drugstore, like the main, you know, like the NYX, the L'Oreal. So don't be fooled by packaging size. Always look at the amount and compare, because sometimes things can look a lot bigger and you're really not getting that much product at all. Or something like this where you're like, wow, that's tiny. You really are getting just as much product. So, and a little bit less waste, I guess, when you think about it. But this is really nice. This is in the shade black. So maybe a little bit deeper than what I would normally go for, but it's still not like a jet black. It's got a little ashiness to it. I think there's 4 shades in the range. And if you like a really stiff pencil, you'll like this one. Like, for example, when you go to swatch it, it really doesn't swatch that well, but like, who really cares how it swatches? What matters is how it looks on your eyebrows. And I do really like how, what is this? What was I saying? And I do really like how it performs on my brows. I've tried a few of Dior brow products and I've liked them. The brow chalk is amazing. It's like this really thick kind of pencil, and I was like, what in God's name is this? And then I realized if you use a brush with it, it's beautiful. It's like somewhere in between a pencil and a pomade, and it's awesome. Continuing with brows in this collection, they have a brow gel. There are 3 shades in the range, and this is dark. First of all, I really like the brush on it. It's quite small, easy to use, doesn't get like overloaded with product. But my issue is that this dark is really not that dark. I can totally pull it off and make it work. And it has like, it doesn't have a ton of color, but it has enough that I think if you have really dark brows, I'm not totally sure if it would work for you. Or you could kind of go for that like highlighted brow look, which can make your brows look more natural and more defined. But I do really like the result. It seems to hold well, kind of adds like a little bit of fluffiness, which I've been super into, a little bit of color, so it's definitely nice. It's just they could maybe use another shade. For the last of the eyes, I'm going to use the Pump and Volume mascara. I'm going to skip liner so you can see this in action. It's so good. It is so good. It's got like this little pump here that you can, like, I guess, load more product on the brush. I don't know what it does, but it is seriously amazing. It has like a thick bristle, or not, sorry, bristle, plastic brush head, but it still gives so much volume, but also length and not too clumpy. It's seriously, oh, it's so good. So as you can see on this eye, it just adds tons of volume, tons of length. I don't have issues with holding a curl or smudging or anything like that, so I can't speak to that, but overall, I think it does such a good job. I'm the most excited to try these. They are the Undercover Diorskin Forever concealers, and these are pretty brand new to the line. I'm going to be using the shade 040 first, just to kind of like correct. It's like just lighter than my skin tone, and then I'm also going to use a little bit of the shade 30. I'm a huge fan of their other concealer, the kind of clicky pen, super lightweight one. So I'm excited to try something a little bit higher coverage. I'm going to blend this out with my fingers. I really like using my fingers with concealer. Even my eyeshadow, like you would have seen earlier. So far, so good. I hate when you put on a concealer and it looks really good and then you start to blend it out and it just disappears. So, not the case. It's quite light under my eyes, but I'll fix that with powder. I put on a little bit too much of the 30, I think. I probably could have just gotten away with 40. So I'm going to be using this Metalizer on my cheeks, even though it says it is for eyes and lips, but you know what? I thought we would try it on the face. It's basically a cream shadow that can be used on your eyes or your lips, but I thought, let's try it on the face. I wore it as a cream shadow the other night with no eyeshadow primer. I have super oily eyelids and I think it held up quite well. Probably still could have used an eyeshadow primer, but it did a really nice job. Really beautiful metallic finish, but when I was swatching these, I was surprised because I put it on my arms and I kind of rubbed my hands over and there was a little bit of transfer, but they stayed really nicely. But then when I went to wash them off, they washed off super easy. So it seems like they have good staying power, but they're not like waterproof or anything. They don't claim to be, but looks really beautiful on the cheeks. No glitter, anything like that, and it comes in a good few shades too. So I'm going to set my under eye with the Dior Forever powder, which I believe is pretty new to their line. This is the shade 40, which is a little bit darker than how I would normally go under my eyes, but because that concealer was a little bit light, just kind of evens it out. And on the rest of my face, I'm also going to be using that powder in the next shade up, I believe, shade 50. I think if you have like combination, normal, maybe not combination, but if you have normal or dry skin, I don't think you need to set that Forever foundation. I have bronzed and blushed, and I'm just going to run a little bit of those two brown shadows that I have on my eye, on my lower lash line. I feel like the glow is still showing through quite nicely, but I am going to use my Dior Nude Air Luminizer in the shade number 1, just to amp it up. I think it pairs really nicely with the color of that cream. One of my first ever like super high-end purchases was actually the Dior highlighter. Remember the older ones? There was an amber and a rose. Those were amazing. They released several new lipsticks in this fall collection, and Dior makes beautiful, beautiful lipsticks. Some matte, some are kind of a more cream, leaning almost sheer. So I have this shade Eccentric, which is a beautiful, very traditional kind of berry shade with a really nice glossy finish, super comfortable. And then also the shade Enigmatic. Oh, sorry, Enigmatic is the berry shade. My bad. Enigmatic is the berry shade. And then I also have Eccentric, which is kind of like this taupey shade with a little bit of berry in it. That's what I'm going to be wearing today. And then I also have a lip liner that was released with the collection. I'm going to put that on, and then also the other shade of the Metalizer that I have. So let's do that. The lipstick or the lip liner is super creamy. This is actually an Enigmatic matte, so it matches the other lip liner that I have, but I'm going to mix and match. It's so creamy. You could totally wear it as just a lipstick as well. Then I'm going to go over it with this shade here, the Eccentric. And the majority of the Dior lipsticks that I have are matte, and this is a really beautiful formula too. Just a little bit of shine, and I really like the way that those two combine. And then I'm going to finish it off with this Metalizer in another shade. All the shades I've used will be listed down below. Oh yeah. This is really nice. It has like a really nice texture because a lot of metallic cream shadows I don't think you could necessarily put on your lips because I feel like they would kind of dry down matte and feel super uncomfortable. But because this is for the lips and the eyes, I think it does a really good job on the lips especially. Also on the cheeks. On the eyes, as I mentioned, I think you may need to pair it with an eye primer if you do have oily eyelids, but it is a really nice way to add a pop of metallic and kind of help your other shadows stick. So this is the finished look. I hope you enjoyed this chit chat try on of some new Dior makeup. The standouts for me right now would be the concealer, the foundation, the Metalizer, along with the lipsticks. You can never go wrong with a Dior lipstick in my opinion. Let me know down below if you would like to see the Diorskin Forever line in action in an Oily Skin Diaries. I can wear it throughout the day and give you my thoughts. But otherwise, if you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat at SamanthaJaneYT, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!